Good evening.
So we're really glad to have you. We're gonna start off with just asking some questions we got online or that are always interesting. But first off, how do you like Germany so far?
I like it very much. And I particularly want to thank you all for coming and saying hello and being as enthusiastic as you have been. It's always great to see fans who love the Saw films, and we love them too, and I'm sure that Costas Mandalore, and I know I myself am very happy to have so many Saw fans here.
So, can you tell us, of course, after the first one was done, did you immediately know that this was going to be so big that you wanted to do more, or that there were going to be more? Did you ever, was there a particular moment where you knew this is going to be something more than just one movie?
No, we made the first film in Los Angeles on a small stage in downtown LA. It was shot in 18 days, and it was released less than a year later, and I wasn't even thinking about doing a Saw 2, 3, or anything like that. It was just going to be one film, and I was happy to be doing it, and to be, for two reasons. One, I had never worked with Danny Glover, and I wanted to work with him. And secondly, I loved the ending, and I thought if they shoot the ending well, that it's a unique moment in film, and it's always nice to participate in any moment like that that is very surprising. It reminded me of a moment in a film called Four Corners, where John Turturro throws his mother out of a window, which is just a shocking moment. And so it's hard to, when you see that moment in Four Corners, it's like, I don't believe that just happened. So when I read the script, it surprised me. I didn't anticipate that moment when I read the script, so I assumed that if I didn't anticipate it reading the script and they shot it well, that the viewer would not anticipate the moment either. And I'm assuming that you know which moment I mean.
How much of the storyline was revealed to you during the whole process? Like, at what point did you know how the story would turn out during the rest of the films?
The storyline was developed film to film. To the credit of the producers, we would wait until one film was released to decide what was going to be the story of the next film, and see how the fans reacted to the film. And so there was no storyline when Saw 1 was made. There was no storyline moving forward. And it was a good while later before I knew that there was even going to be a Saw 2.
And seeing all the Saw movies, can you name what was your favorite trap or victim with the traps? Was there a particular setting of who you found really interesting yourself from the traps in the movie, the games?
The traps were not something I gave a lot of thought to. The traps were developed by special effects people, and they had not a great deal to do with the characters and relationships in the script or the evolution of the Jigsaw or John Kramer character. I liked the traps, and when I say I liked, the traps that I found most interesting were the ones that had to do with people's karma, where people I think John Kramer was most interested in people who in some way were liars and hypocrites. And so often the traps would have to do with some things that they had played out in their own lives. And those were the traps that I found most interesting. As an example of what I mean, feedback. Shawnee's needle pit. The needle pit. Shawnee was a junkie, or the guy who ended up in the incinerator. He was an arsonist. And so those were the traps that I found most interesting, not only as traps, but also in terms of the storyline. When the storyline, if it was about people who stole money from people or lied to people, that the trap had something to do with the sins that they had committed. I found those to be most interesting and also most supportive of the what I found most interesting about the Saw films. The traps were fabulous. They were, that's when people go to see scary movies, to see stuff like that. But for me, as an actor and as a writer, I'm much more interested in character, much more interested in relationship. I'm much more interested in the stakes that are involved, not so much the mechanical special effects.
So can you share with us...
I particularly like the refrigerator room also in Saw 3, because I loved how the special effects guys did that and how they worked with the actress who played the woman who was in the refrigerator room, how they layered the ice onto her body. It was just fascinating, and watching the actress who played it was really cool too.
Would you mind sharing with us what helped you get into character, or that you portrayed John Kramer the way you did? How did you connect with your character, and what did you find most interesting about him?
There's something about this whole place that reminds me of Jigsaw's lair. I found the way I worked on him, frankly, they ask actors all the time, well, do you bring your character home? Do you have... No, I don't. I worked on him very technically. John Kramer was a mechanical engineer. He was a detail guy, a bit of a philosopher, a bit of a theologian. He was interested in history and architecture and music and poetry and all of those kinds of things. So am I. So I did not go in the direction of the rest of the film. Although people tell me I was scary in the film, I wasn't playing scary. I was very interested in his motivation and the things that he did every day, the things he was interested in, and the things that he cared about, and the reasons why he was doing, what his sense of commitment was. And I always ask myself, what would be happening here if there was no scene? If there was, what does he do every day? What does he do with his time? I'm very interested in objects, what kind of objects people are involved with. And so that's how I worked on John Kramer in a very technical way, because the guy is an engineer. That's what he is. And that made the most sense to me. I take voluminous notes, and I want to know all the time, what does he mean by what he says? Because you can say the same thing, and you can mean this, or you can mean slightly different, or a little bit different than that. You can tell someone that you love them in 10 different ways. And, the subtleties of meaning are very important to me. So I always continue to ask myself, what does he mean by that? What specifically does he mean? I mean, if you tell me that you're exhausted, well, are you exhausted because you haven't gotten any sleep? Are you exhausted because your girlfriend is on your back? Are you exhausted because you're in a fight with your boss, because you're tired of your job? Why are you exhausted? What specifically creates someone to be exhausted? And as an actor, if you say the line, I'm exhausted, enough times and not know specifically what you mean, you'll go mad after a while. You cannot continue to fake saying lines if you don't know what they mean. So that's how I work on characters, whether they're John Kramer or cowboys or astronauts or priests or whatever they are. I ask myself a lot of questions about the specific meaning of what he's after.
Right. So let's see if we can make the audience talk to us. Does anyone have a question? So come on over.
Okay. First of all, I would thank you for your performance as John Kramer. And my question is, in the last movie, there exists a rumor where in the first scene with the trapper, the public is watching these two guys with the woman above. There exists a rumor that at the end of this first scene, Jigsaw stands in the public. Was this shot?
No, the Jigsaw was in that crowd.
In the crowd.
Yeah, it was in the first script. It was in the first script. Yeah, it was in the script. They never shot it.
Why?
Ask the producers. I'm not sure, honestly. Frankly, I think it was a time issue or something like that. But I do remember in my mind, I remember it being in the first version of Saw 7.
Yeah, because I asked this because I was missing you, John Kramer.
Thank you very much. I was missing me too.
In the last movie. The most favorite film was the sixth one because of the relationship between John Kramer and William. There was a personal bill William had to pay for Jigsaw.
And for what he perpetrated on thousands of people who were in the hands of his insurance company, and which he was trying to, and he had a whole room full of people that looked in the contracts, insurance contracts of people, and tried to find some way that they broke the contract. If he could find that way, he could eliminate the contract. He could eliminate their policy. And all the money that they had paid over those years belonged to the insurance company. So I liked that aspect of the relationship too, and it gave me an opportunity to say a line. As I recall, the line was something like, they say that politicians should stay out of the health situation of citizens. And now I know that it's not the politicians who are controlling healthcare. It's the insurance companies. So I got a chance to punch to the insurance companies.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I liked 6 as well for that reason. And William was also very good actor. He's a Canadian guy.
Noch eine Frage? Wer traut sich? Dann einmal vorbeikommen.
Hi there.
Hi, I like your jacket.
Oh, thanks. Well, okay. Mind if I'm filming you while?
But you're going to talk and video at the same time. What kind of a world is this that we live in? Go ahead. Everybody has that.
Okay, thank you.
You do whatever feels good to you.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we're doing here.
Well, first of all, really, thank you very much for coming here. It's just awesome to see you here, and I think we're all on the same boat right here, right? So thank you very much for being here. It's great. First of all, what do you think? What kind of man was John Kramer before his traumatic experience to, getting to know that he's about to die and the car accident? What do you think John Kramer was before all of this? How was he? What kind of man was he before?
Well, as you know, he first let's talk about his childhood, all right? Because that's where it begins. And in my view, John was an orphan. I don't believe that I think he was maybe 4 or 5 years old when he lost his parents, and he ended up in an orphanage, and his experiences there shaped the entire rest of his life. But I also think that his relationship with his wife was a serious thing that happened that created a lot of angst in him. But getting sick, combination of experiences that he had fueled his political and his social perspective. But as with most of us, what happens in the first 6 years of your life has a huge effect on what kind of a human being you become. And you can change some of that, but some of it lingers. And with John, I think it was mostly to do with his childhood.
Thank you. 2 more. Second, do you think the Saw franchise is officially over?
My sense of it would be that probably not, but I have no hard information. I've been in a number of discussions.
I see.
But, I never believed that we were going to do another one until we were actually doing it. Because there was a lot of talk about it, but when I actually had the script in my hand and I knew I was going back to the stage to do it, then I believed it. But Hollywood is rich with talk, and so I don't believe a lot of what people say. I believe what happens, what actually occurs. So, do I hope that if there's a good story to be told, it has to do with good writers, like all other films. If the writing is good, that's where you begin.
Okay, thank you. And my last question would be, what's next for you after the whole Saw franchise? What are you going to do
recommend
next?
that you see a film called Manson Family Vacation. It's on Netflix right now and available, I think, worldwide. I just finished a film called Rainbow Time. I was in Mexico working on a film for a month called Beelzebuth. The one that you can see tomorrow is Manson Family Vacation. Charlie Manson is the linchpin on which the whole film hangs. But it's not about Charlie Manson. It's about the relationship between two brothers. Fabulous film, worth seeing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
So,
Sure. Cut.
so we have time for one last question. Is there anyone now? Okay, over there. Come over.
Tobin,
Yes.
here.
Hello.
When I talk with many people about movies, and then I mention the Saw movies. Most people really like, those are those bloods and guts movies, and do you think because of that many people don't see how clever, how originally the script is in yeah, compared with the typical Hollywood formula film. So that many people are just, they see, okay, this is all this blood and that they don't see what kind of clever story and good acting and photography is behind.
I understand, but many people do. You know, many people do see. Saw was a groundbreaking film in 2001. Three, I think it was 3 when it first came out. It was groundbreaking in that it was its approach to. I give that credit to James Wan, who was the writer, along with Lee Whannell, and Lee Whannell played Adam, the third guy in the bathroom. Well, I was the third guy, but he was the second guy. So Lee and James, a couple of young guys from Australia, very young guys, came to the US with this script and a 10-minute short, which I still have a copy of, the 10-minute short. And it was just 10 minutes that they shot in the bathroom in Australia, in a bathroom. And they were right place, right time. Some guys who were looking for the right film that they could shoot at a certain price. And the film developed from there. But some of the concept, and that's when I read the script, I was like, who makes a film about 3 guys locked in a bathroom? I mean, to me, it seemed like a play. You know, like a play like Waiting for Godot. Something along those lines, and I was fascinated by that. So I think that Saw broke ground in a number of different ways. If you don't like it, or you don't want to go see it, don't go see it. And if is it violent? Yeah. Does it have those elements in it? Yeah. And I understand why. I mean, I'll give you an example of what I mean. There are people in my community who've never seen a Saw film. They don't know, they just know in their heads, they know that there's this violent film. They know I was the guy. So they've never seen them. Their kids, I've had like 12 kids come up to me on a playground, like from the age of, say, 10 to 14, and they say to me, "You're the guy, huh?" And I say, "You mean?" And they say, "Yeah." And I say, "You've seen those films?" And they say, "Yeah, we've seen them." "Did they scare you?" "Nah." And I say, how did you feel about them? I said, "We liked them." "Why did you like them?" They said, one of the smallest kids said to me, "Because they teach you stuff." And I was like, "Well, what do they teach you? Tell me what you mean." And he said, "Well, they teach you that you got to appreciate what you have. You got to appreciate your life." I was like, wow. He didn't talk to me about the traps. He didn't talk to me about the violence. He talked to me about the underlying elements that I was working on. And James and Lee, they were there from Saw 1. The treatment of the terminally ill by the medical community was one of the themes. Those who don't appreciate life don't deserve life. One of the themes was always bubbling underneath the surface. So that's what those kids were talking to me about. So as far as I'm concerned, the 40-year-olds or the 60-year-olds or the 30-year-olds who don't want to go see a Saw film, I completely understand. I'm not a big horror person. It's not my thing, okay? Although I ended up doing this film, life has strange twists and turns in it. But I remember when I was living in New York, and I lived in New York for 35 years, and I asked this woman once who she was leaving, and she said she was going to see some film, like Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know what she was going to go see. And I said, "Why do you go see those films?" And she said to me, I said, what is it about horror film that you like? And she said, it's a visceral experience. And I said, oh, I get it, I get that. She said, it's like sex. It's like you can't control necessarily what's going to happen to you if you're going to end up back in the chair and gripping your chair. It's something that's visceral. Go see a romantic comedy. I adore romantic comedy. You know, I love period pieces. I love historical drama. But it's not so much a visceral experience. It's often intellectual, other kinds of things. So it's not something you can kind of, horror films are something that she explained to me, and I really, she gave me the best explanation that I could get about why people love to go to horror films. And it is a visceral experience because I've been in Saw films where people laugh. They're so scared and so amazed by what they're seeing that they laugh. They're scared and they laugh at the same time. And it's so, that's not something you can dream up. It just happens to you, you know? So, what did you ask me?
You answered really everything and much, much more. Thank you.
Okay, good.
All the time we have today, but tomorrow you will come back with Costas Mangalore on stage.
Excellent.
So we will have more insight of the two of you working together on this.
That'll be a blessing. Thank you.
But we would like to thank you for today and give you another big round of applause and say thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How many, I wanted to get a sense of how many people here understood, because I'm having a little trouble with who speaks English, who speaks German. I want to know, you know, because there are people from Belgium and France. How many, raise your hand if you understood most of what I said. That's good. Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you so much.